67, huh?
Oh, what a hit on Dunham by Switowski.
I think I made him shit himself.
What up, everyone? DJ Anubis here with you on the Military Podcast with my co-host and great friend, Big Mike, the Sex God. And we are here for Poetic Carnage, and then there were 8. And we got a lot to talk about today.
We do. I used to be
some
poet.
good, some bad. But I tell you, though, I have to tell this side note because I already got my idea for the next segment I'm gonna do for this other shit, the drama, because apparently Asmongold and fucking Elon are at war. That's got to be like the news of the year.
Two people that I just don't particularly. Well, I don't really like Asmongold. I don't think that he's a bad person at heart. I think Elon Musk is an objectively horrible human being. But for the record, I want to let everyone know that poetry is dead, given what happened this past wild card weekend. And since I was supposed to pretend that the Steelers were a real playoff team, I'm going to pretend that my name is Big Mike the Sex God. So it's good for the goose. It's good for the gander. So that's why.
Yeah. So, like, where do we want to start?
Let's why
Which
don't
game?
we rip
Which
the
game are we gonna go
let's rip the
first?
band-aids off of our team. So how
Okay.
about we start with the Steelers real quick?
All right.
All right.
So Ravens hosted the Steelers. It was the third time they've met this year. They're division rivals. Steelers won the first matchup. Ravens the second time, and then now we're in the third time. And you and I talked about it last week that kind of coming into this game, the Steelers were not playing their best football. They had lost like 4 straight, I think, at some point. We both did pick the Ravens to win this game. I don't know, man. Early on, it looked really, really bad. So, I mean, eventually the Steelers kind of got into the game a little bit, but
It was fool's gold.
Yeah, every time they would like
do anything,
make a good score, all of a sudden they just give up Derrick Henry like taking shit to the house. And
everything went wrong. So I'm going to spend the majority talking about what the Ravens did right, because that was a dominant win and they deserve their flowers. But for the Steelers, I want to talk about the things that they did wrong that Baltimore might have impacted, but it was mostly the Steelers doing wrong. First thing, and I'll run through it really quick. If I forget something, let me know, because like I said, I want to spend more time on Baltimore. Okay. When we switched to Russ, I said it was a bold move and I didn't like it for 2 reasons. One, I didn't think long-term for the season that he was actually better than Justin Fields. That looks like that was a solid take. I can't scientifically prove it. 2, even for the future, at least with Fields, and I'm not saying the Steelers are a mecca of offense, but they are a better organization than the Bears, right? So at least Fields throwing to, he did get DJ Moore later on in his career in Chicago, but throwing to a real wide receiver, having a real offensive coordinator, having constant talent or consistent talent in the backfield, yada, 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 in the defense. And Chicago had a good defense until this year. There's reasons for that. So you cut the legs out from Fields, and you also cut the legs out underneath yourself, because now we're still sitting here going, could Fields be that guy? And I have to say at this point, I don't think so anymore, just because so many years have passed. But if I'm right and there was a last chance for him, probably was with us last year. So we fucked that up. Russ was fool's gold, and people will defend his playoff performance and ignore the 0 points in the first half. They'll ignore the bad sacks they took, the missed throws, we've talked about it. Russ became 2 years ago in Denver now the king of decent stat line bad play. And that's what last week was. Okay, it just was. He was never, ever really great. He beat up on some bad defenses. He gave the team a shot in the arm. You hit a couple deep balls, you keep the offense in it, blah, blah, blah. Here's the next problem. And I'm not a fire Tomlin guy. We've talked about that too. The same reasons stand. However, I will say this. It is harder today to be a not move on from Mike Tomlin guy than it was last week, which makes me sad. And there are serious flaws with Tomlin. Look,
Did you see that they had someone posted a meme where Mike McCarthy's record?
I saw that. It's so dumb. And I hate it. That's what I call a stupid person meme, because it's like one of these guys had most of his head coaching career with prime Aaron Rodgers, and then had Dak, and then Tomlin's had prime Big Ben, and then old fat Ben, right? And then the shit show
afterwards, yeah.
So one guy played in the AFC North and the other guy played in the NFC North. And it's like, yeah, I hate to tell you this. One of the Ohio teams is usually shitty, and one of the Ohio teams is usually good, and Baltimore is really good. So playing against a perennial Super Bowl contender, and then the versions of the dominant Cleveland defense, or the Andy Dalton Bengals, who were a good regular season team, or the Joe Burrow Bengals, is a little bit different than playing against the I love Matt Stafford, but the Matt Stafford era Lions, the Vikings, and the shitty Bears. So I mean, it just is what it is. So it's a bad comp. It's a dumb person's comp. I'm not saying that you're dumb. I did see it all over NFL Twitter and things like that. But when you lose 5 games in a row, you let people get to meme on you. But with Tomlin, here's the biggest issue, and this is where I'll close with this. Other than the fact that the defense completely shat itself, and it's the most expensive defense in the NFL.
It's a common theme because Denver, both Steelers and Denver had good defenses coming into these games.
Yes, but at least you're not spending the money on your defense that we are, which is a testament to your roster building. For us, it's the offensive line. So this is going to be one of the weirdest fucking things you've ever heard in football, at least in recent memory, okay? Imagine you have a team who has a center, a rookie center, who, if you like advanced stats and all of that, is one of the better centers this season as a rookie. That's pretty good. And then you have a guard who is one of the better guards in football, one of the best guards as a rookie. So you would think that that's the makings of a pretty good line, right? Just intellectually. Right now, you can find a million film breakdowns of our offensive linemen getting to the second level and not knowing who to block, or both of our guards or a guard and a tackle pulling simultaneously and accomplishing absolutely nothing. And they've been showing, like Orlovsky has been showing this in film for weeks upon weeks. So all of a sudden, Najee, who's a above average back, and Jaylen Warren, who's a nice, change of pace back and has got some power and is really explosive. It's like, why do they look worse than they did last year sometimes, even though the offense is a little bit better, at least theoretically this year? It's because of that. And Tomlin is the king of, you can go up and down that line for the past several years. Broderick Jones played left tackle, and he's kind of a raw prospect. Let's make him a right tackle in favor of the bad left tackle you have. Let's move this guy who played right guard to left guard. Let's make this guard a center. Let's make this center a guard. And it's like, there's something to be said for plugging holes and having to get through a season, but there's also something for letting the guys that you drafted have a chance to develop. And Tomlin is too loyal to veterans. He shuffles things. He shuffles offensive line too much. It's like he is horrified of having a game where a rookie or a sophomore offensive lineman plays their position at a premium position that has a bad game. And it's like you will get fewer of those bad games in overall if you just let them struggle. And like Joe Alt this year against the Steelers. TJ Watt lined up against him. Joe Alt did not have a good day. There were a lot of Charger fans who were typing Joe Alt delete, Joe Alt delete, because he had a couple plays where he gave TJ the business. Gave up several. He gave up a holding penalty. He gave up a sack. He got away with a couple other holds. He gave up pressures. He did not have a good day on that Sunday. Okay, that was Joe Alt early in the year. That's a different guy than Joe Alt at the end of the year. So it's that's my main criticism of Tomlin. He kept Terrell Austin, who's a bad defensive coordinator. I don't know why. I didn't like it then. I don't fucking like it now. And the reality of the situation is the Steelers, who 5 weeks ago looked like they were probably going to win the division and probably get a wild card win, look really bad. And, there's, so to move on to Baltimore, well, what did they do? Right. Damn near everything. Lamar Jackson, like everyone is glazing Josh Allen right now, and I know it's trendy. The Josh Allen's the second best quarterback in football, and it's not even close conversation. And I don't care if someone says Josh Allen is the second best quarterback, that's a perfectly reasonable take. But now, he's one of the golden child. So even though Lamar Jackson outplayed him, even if you just watch the game or whatever, it's Josh Allen this and Josh Allen that, and Lamar was better. And the amount of times he got out of a fucking sack from Highsmith or Peyton Wilson or Watt or whatever was just absolutely brutal. He was soul crushingly good. In the playoffs, he gets to come completely unchanged. So does Josh Allen. The guys who can run, they get to go full tilt because it's the playoffs. And then dealing with them is suddenly harder.
The one difference I'll say about this game is that, yeah, Josh had a great game, and we're going to get to that, but Josh had all day to pick where he wanted to go with the football. Lamar did not. Like, despite the issues that the Steelers had on defense, they put pressure on his ass. I saw Lamar make plays I haven't seen since John Elway. He was getting out of trouble. He was staying in the pocket. He was staying focused, and he was finding guys that it's like checkdowns. Like he's going through his reads. He sees that no one's there. Then he goes down to his running back. Like that one last pass, I think he threw the hill for a touchdown. Like that was one of the best plays I've seen him ever make because he had to step up. He could have ran, but he said nope, and he dipped it off. And I was like, that's just smart playing.
He ran 15 times for 81 yards. And almost every single time he ran, it was the right decision. And they had a couple, I think they had a couple designed runs, which is they don't do that as much in Baltimore now because they want to preserve them. They might break it out at the end of the game or oh, we haven't done this in a while and hit you with it, keep you on your toes. The amount of times where he just ran for a handful of yards, maybe got the first down, maybe didn't, and slid and kept himself clean. And it's like that should have been a sack for a loss of 3 to 7 yards, and now it's a gain of 4 or 5 yards. That's a 12-yard flip, and he was amazing. And he did it without Zay Flowers. Henry was brutal. The Ravens defense was brutal. I don't ever want to fucking hear the phrase "let Russ cook" ever again. Not even ironically. I don't want him to fucking weld. I don't want him to fucking cook. I don't want him to fucking dance. I don't want him to crochet. I don't want him to fucking play checkers. I don't want him to throw a football in the state of Pennsylvania. He is probably still good enough to be a starting quarterback on a bad team. And if he's our quarterback next year, I have a sneaking feeling we're going to be that bad team. It's a brutal spot too going forward. This is a very much love or hate quarterback class, at least thus far in people doing analysis. And we're locked into, I believe we're picking 21. So we're going to have to trade up a lot if we want a quarterback. So I'm sitting here once again talking to you about our quarterback situation in the offseason.
Which is so weird because in the offseason we said, okay, well, Russ, you may get 50-50, but when Fields got taken over and came over, it's like, oh, okay, well, this is a huge possibility here because a new scene for him, a chance maybe to see what he's got. And the funny thing is Fields actually had
good
better record than Russ.
Yes, he did. Brother, when they switched to Russ, Arthur Smith put out this really weird thing about how much he loves Justin Fields and he's a team guy. And let me see if I can find it. I should have had it prepared. I apologize.
No, that's fine. But so while you're looking that up, I saw he had a better record. Now, granted, it's early in the season. It was 4-2, I think, his record. Russ comes in. I think Russ went 5-6, and then that's not counting the game against the Ravens. So it just kind of blew my mind. Like, I know that Justin wasn't really polished, but when you put a guy who's in a new offense, it's going to take some time. And, the thing that I saw the most with Justin was even when he wasn't necessarily making and I think this is what led to Russ taking over, was like the passing game wasn't that pretty.
Nope.
But Justin was making plays with his feet, and that's important, especially when your line isn't protecting your quarterback.
Yeah, sure. Oh, here's the quote. Tell me if this sounds a little Sean Payton-esque to you. There's no drama to him. He doesn't try to live through his avatar or create a perception. There's reports now that Russ and Arthur Smith didn't have a good relationship. I know why, because I know why. he didn't have a good relationship. Because one, Arthur Smith likes to throw the ball to the tight ends. And Russ did a decent job of that this year, but it wasn't typically over the fucking middle. Two, Russell Wilson is an avatar and perception guy. I mean, he has that very corporate, let's ride. I'm not saying he's not a positive guy. I saw that he had to put his dog down today or yesterday, so I do feel bad for him in that regard. And I don't hate Russ. We talked about it. I think he's a Hall of Fame quarterback. The people
No, he's a classic guy. There's no
he's
getting
not
around that.
he's not a bad guy. I think he's a good guy, but he's very much he there's no other way to fucking put it. He's got a crafted image, and that rubs some people the wrong way. And when you're winning, it doesn't matter. But we switched to him. And I'm not saying that I don't know if it would have worked out any better with Justin Fields. For all I know, the wheels would have fell off. I know there was a time where Fields missed a couple games because he was hurt. I don't know what would have happened. But I sat here and I said these exact same things in this fucking offseason about my fears and concerns with Russell Wilson. I said it a handful of times, but we didn't do as many Poetic Carnages this year, but when we did do it, I said it last year as soon as when he was being linked to us. So it's a frustrating end to the season. And, especially when we get here's my big angst of it. If you look at how the Chargers and the Texans played, and if you look at how we were slated to play one of those teams, most likely a month ago or so, god damn, it feels like we left at least a playoff win on the table. And brutal way to end the year.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. But like I said, the one issues that they share in common between the Steelers and Broncos as we shift over to Denver and Buffalo is that generally during the year, Denver was very good against the run. And surprisingly, against the Buffalo Bills, we were ass. And so that doesn't help. We knew that Josh Allen was going to do Josh Allen things. He's a great quarterback, one of the best in the game right now.
Yeah.
But of course, Bo's a rookie. So, I mean, I expected this to be a Bills win. I was hoping the game would be a little more competitive than it ended up. And, of course, it started out great. It always does. In fact, we went up 7-0. I'm thinking, okay, we're going to make a game of this. Might be good. Maybe I even pull out the win, but it went downhill very quickly from there. And then Buffalo got some breaks. There was a really great catch by their running back in the back of the end zone towards the end of the half, and that was something that we saw a few weeks in the Kansas City game where it just, sometimes you get a nice little bounce that goes your way, but they just played a great game overall, and their defense really played lights out against us. We just could not. And the other thing that bothered me about this game is, as much as I like Sean Payton, he's very inconsistent about his game calling. So playing against the scrubby Chiefs, he had a lot of creative play calling. He was having fun, doing different things. And then we go up against Buffalo, we're just going back to resorting to usual play calling that people recognize, and it's just not very creative. So you're not really helping out Bo. And then Bo, he doesn't even allow Bo to start really running until later in the second half. He should have been allowing Bo to kind of be a free spirit and do whatever he needed to do to pick up first downs and stuff. And we just didn't do it. So it was just a mess all the way top to bottom. But at the same time, I expected Buffalo to win this game, but I was hoping it would be a lot closer than it was.
Yeah, well, it also goes to one of the things I've been saying about Buffalo this entire year, and I called it. Buffalo, they have a really good front office, and they let a lot of names go this last offseason. And they were Pro Bowl names and players with name recognition. There's no other way to put it. We know who these guys are. And that's when you got a lot of people who were saying, oh, the Bills are going to miss the playoffs. And some of that was the pundits believed Tua stays healthy, Rodgers is still solid, which weren't necessarily horrible takes. I never believed that the Bills were not going to win that division because, one, they have Josh Allen, and two, Buffalo drafts well, and they see these things coming. and they know I'm letting some of these guys go. And some of those guys, they just weren't that valuable to a team anymore for no other reason than they might still be good, but they just had health issues. I'm not shitting on those guys. I'm just saying it happens a lot. And a lot of those guys were paid and they kicked the can down the road financially because they were Super Bowl contenders. But their roster is still good. And so right now there's a narrative that Josh Allen, and I think he's in a situation like Lamar, where he doesn't have anyone on the offense as good as Derrick Henry. So that is one, and we talked about that a little bit for the MVP conversation. But James Cook scored 18 touchdowns this year. James Cook had a good game against Denver. I'm not trying to rub the salt in the wound. You know what Derrick Henry did to Denver.
That's how it is. Yeah.
They just kept hitting us and they would not stop. So solidarity, brother. Dawson Knox and Kincaid, they had down years, but they had 2 tight ends that was kind of mirrored the Andrew likely.
But that's the key. The one problem that I've been bitching about, and you know this for fucking years, is we don't have any linebackers to cover the tight ends.
Drew Sanders
he was throwing the tight ends that no one even heard of in that game.
I know. And Drew Sanders is supposed to be the guy that fixed that, and I know he got hurt early on. No, it's brutal. Shakir is a really good wide receiver. He's people don't necessarily want to give those guys the credit because I get it. People want Allen to get the MVP, and if he's worthy of it. I don't think it's the right pick, but he's worthy of it. But you know how it goes. If I want someone to get this award, I'm going to talk down what he has a little bit to boost him up, and then talk up what other people have to boost them down. That was the king. Whenever Peyton Manning and Tom Brady were dueling for MVPs, if you were a Manning guy, well, those slot receivers that Brady's throwing to and those tight ends. Now, granted, you have Gronk and all that stuff, but then if you're the Brady guy, you're like, well, Eric Decker might secretly be a top 10 receiver. It's a tale as old as time, but he's sitting there. I mean, he's throwing to Curtis Samuel. He's throwing to Shakir. He's throwing to these guys who are good players, regardless of what their stats say. And it's a lot of kind of like what Lamar did. And you watch the Bills play, and it's like, no, they have a good team. The narrative won't die. Somehow we're going to hold, the Pro Bowlers that Lamar has on defense against him for his offensive play, which is dumb. And I didn't like it when we did that, in fairness to Josh Allen, who was part of the MVP conversation a couple years ago when they had a lot of really good defensive players. Because it's like, I love Matt Milano as much as the next guy. I just don't think he helps Josh Allen complete a 50-yard bomb to Stephon Diggs. I just don't think that he does. I mean, he could get a turnover and set them up to have the extra possession, but that's about it, guys. So it's silly. Josh Allen is elite. He's a monster. James Cook is one of the best backs in football. I've been telling people about him for years. I thought it was huge that it looked like he was going to stay through the year healthy. Their defense, they're a weird defense. They're really good in some categories and bad in others. At the end of the day,
like I say, when it comes to the draft and free agency, Denver's going to have to look at the linebacker position. Then they're going to have to look at running back. I know we got some guys that look kind of good about here and there throughout the year, but it's not consistent enough to say, hey, we got a running game.
Javonte is not that guy. You have you have the second and third back. You're looking for the first back, and if you're going to keep those types of guys to be your primary back, which is kind of like what Baltimore would do over the years, especially because Dobbins kept getting hurt and Dobbins was a good player. Then you need then Denver graded out with having one of the better lines in football, but then they need to be that much better if you're gonna ignore the running back position. And the running back position is gaining value, which is really cool. Shout out to my one of my best friends, my homie Hinkle. He's gotten to football the past couple years, and he's a big running back guy. He's a Chicago guy, so he likes defense. He likes running the ball. So one of the things that delights my guy is how he's seeing running backs get paid a little bit more now, and he's seeing their prominence rise in football. And there's something to be said for it, because Jonathan Taylor and Saquon Barkley and some other guys kind of reestablished the value of a running back this year, especially Saquon, because boy, oh boy, could the Giants have fucking used him.
But you know what? That's the other thing too, though, is that you look at the Giants with Saquon, and you look at the Titans when they had Derek, and it's like, yeah, these guys helped their teams when they were there, but other factors played in, and either it's money or injury or whatever, and then they move on to other teams and they become bigger parts of those
Because
cogs. So
they're
like,
on a real team. He
yeah,
was really awesome in
yeah,
Tennessee, and they weren't ever really they made the AFC Championship one year, but they aren't really ever a real contender. But the line was great, the defense was good, you had at least passable, play from the quarterbacks and so on and so forth, and you gave them a chance to thrive. Tennessee, they are a team who they let AJ Brown go. They definitely thought Derrick Henry didn't have as much left in the tank as he did. Um, they gambled on Tannehill probably a little bit too long. They missed on Levis. They spent money in this offseason on the receivers. They're trying. I give them credit for trying to be competitive, but they've just been snake bitten. Ain't shit gone right.
yeah.
So I that's what I tell myself. I was like, it could be worse. We could be the Titans, but all right. Enough about our fucking misery.
All right. Well, let's move over to we go to Houston, and the Texans were taking on the Chargers, and we both picked the road team to win this one. And this was, this is so funny because you and I, we've been together, friends for a long time. We've been watching football a long time. And despite Harbaugh being like a big difference maker for the Chargers, the team in this playoff game reminded me of last year against the the Jacksonville Jaguars, maybe 2 years ago. This team comes out, they play hard, they get up front, and then they just melt down. And here's my question to you, because you are a big Justin Herbert guy.
Yep.
Is he reliable to be
Yes.
consistent throughout a game?
Yeah. This is what I saw. First off, he has to take all of the mockery right now. He has to take it on the chin. There are a lot right now. There are a lot of people who are Herbert haters who throughout this regular season, they had to be really quiet and they were nervous because it looked like they were about to eat one, and it kind of bailed them out. So he has to take it on the chin. The big knock on Herbert, or what I will say is the most common one, I don't know if it's the most accurate, is that he's too mechanical. It's read, make the right play, read, and he doesn't use his arm enough. He doesn't run enough. He doesn't use the fact he's a physical specimen enough. And I didn't always necessarily think that was fair, but I kind of at least half-assedly understood it. And that's a weird criticism for him now, because in that playoff game, that pick that he threw across his body when they just got a turnover, it was so unjust and Herbert like if you told me he was going to throw that pick, I'd be like, okay, it's probably fourth down or at the end of the game and it's desperation or at the end of the half, something where it's like more understandable. And
Yeah.
when he threw it across his body, I was like, oh my God, the Chargers scored a touchdown. Because usually if he does something like that, the play broke down, someone's wide open, he's going to capitalize on it. I just see this Texas defender make a great play, and I'm like, oh Jesus, he did not look like himself. But I'll give you the shorter answer. The parallel that I draw for him, who he reminds me of, and it's a little bit different because he has Harbaugh now, but his career arc reminds me so much of Matt Stafford. And if you look at some of the criticisms, not clutch, not a big game guy, although Stafford had a shit ton of fourth quarter comebacks. Not clutch, not a big playoff guy, doesn't live up to talent, does harm with his arm, all the dumb, there's no cool stat pad,
There's
pad,
the poet.
stat Padford and those dumb fucking nicknames, but the thing of it is he had that game. He played that game. That was an entirely winnable game. Stroud played like shit himself too. I thought Stroud got away with a pick in the end zone. I still don't know how they overturned that, because to me it was clear as day that there was enough evidence to overturn the interception. But what do I know? Fuck me. I'm just Big Mike the Sex God. So I don't know shit about shit.
And the other thing is too is that I was kind of surprised. I mean, Joe Mixon's a great running back in his own right, but he had a big game against their defense, which was kind of shocking. Whereas I know that J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards aren't like your fantastic running backs, but they're seasoned veterans that should have had better game than they did. So it was really kind of amazing that the Chargers defense didn't shut down Mixon. I would have done everything I could to make sure that Stroud was going to be the one to beat me. And so it's really kind of surprising that they allowed Mixon to run like
they
that.
let Nick Mixon run out like that, and then they let Nico Collins get whatever he wanted. So
Yeah.
I actually, to be honest, would have probably doubled Nico the entire game because Stroud has not been very good this year. And I can live with Mixon getting some chunk plays here or there. For no other reason, I think that at least at this point in their careers, Nico is the better talent.
Yeah.
But it is unacceptable, especially for a defense as talented as the Chargers and as good as the Chargers defense was all year, to let both guys go off on them. And
Yep.
I'm not trying to give Stroud any excuses, but for fuck's sake, Mechie had that horrible fumble. He didn't do much. Tank Dell, get better soon, Tank. We're rooting for you. He's out with that terrible knee injury. It's not like Stroud had the weapons. Diggs is out. It's not like he had the weapons now that he did at week 1.
Right.
And it was bizarre. Now, some of that is Nico Collins is a monster, and Joe Mixon is still very good and crafty. They're gonna be guys who are gonna do something. But god damn it, I agree with you. I think you're spot on. And but for that game, I would have been perfect on Wild Card Weekend.
Yeah. Yeah. I did fuck up.
Unfortunately for
In
us.
fact, we'll go to which I was very impressed here too. Is I picked the Vikings and you picked the Rams, of course.
Yeah.
Actually texted you during this game. I'm like, Darnold is ass. We had just gotten done talking about our player of the year, and I'm like, yeah, I think Sam's played so well. He's looked great, and
I wasn't gonna bring that up because you were converted to the right side
hey,
of the bar.
I have to own that shit because I'm like looking at this. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Like, you look like the dude I saw in New York. What the fuck is this shit?
And you're not in New York. So that's why,
Yeah, but dude, the Rams defense was brutal. They were so fucking good. Like
yards, the stat was something like most yards lost on sacks in like maybe ever or like 20 years or something. A lot of those sacks, I think about half of them were on Darnold because he just wouldn't get rid of the fucking ball.
yeah.
It's weird watching somebody lose like $50 million in real time. Usually you have to watch the stock market do that and think like, oh, who owns that company?
If you ever had a moment and like you went 14-2 before he lost the last 2 games, and like in both games he sucked ass. Like he just looked abysmal. So now, if you're the Vikings, you're like, we have no choice. We have to go with our rookie or our guy from last year that got hurt early in the year. There's no choice. You can't sit there and say we can't risk another Darnold year.
They might try to keep him.
They might do it just from the fact that he knows the offense. But it's like, if I'm the owners, I'm like, yeah, if our boy is healthy from Michigan, we're just going with him first. Like, I'll just run with him.
And you know what happens. So next year, if they don't make the playoffs, it's going to be you should have stuck with Darnold. Here's the thing: you're not winning a Super Bowl with Darnold. And what people don't understand, and this is what fucking frustrates me, is I have seen the Sam Darnold story before. I think he's a starting quarterback. I never thought he was as bad as he looked in Carolina or New York. Okay. I knew he wasn't as good as he looked this year. All right. But I've seen the plucky, scrappy, kind of talented guy come back and have a big season. It comes in many forms. Randall Cunningham, who was an up and down pro, but was a pretty good pro, comes back and on his last legs has another nice year in Minnesota. Okay. We've seen, or Winston, for instance, in New Orleans before he got hurt. There's different flares. There's different levels of it. Sometimes you have a prolonged success, like a Rich Gannon, even though the bulk of Rich Gannon's career, not so great. The journeyman thing, Testaverde is another name who comes to mind. A less flattering example of that is Case Keenum, even though if you looked at the advanced analytics and watched the game, you knew he was ass. But at least theoretically, he was good, and so on and so forth. So I never thought that he was going to be 4,000 yards and 35 touchdowns consistently a year type of good. I did not think he was going to shit the bed because as much grief as I just gave Russ. Russ at least looked like a professional quarterback
Yeah.
against the Ravens. Darnold looked like he came off of a bender and was going in for the first preseason game of the year. It was the memes were
He was like just somebody like you said, like someone just called him before the game saying, "You got this, bro. You're Joe Kingman. You're number one in our hearts, and like we're gonna pay you $50 million at the end of the season here. Just win this game." And he's like, "I'm gonna shit myself.
I'm gonna shit myself. The memes of Sam Darnold as a medium or a Ghostbuster because he sees ghosts just absolutely fucking killed me. Although to be fair to him, he was getting hit by a lot of guys. He really got hit by more men than a wrestler in a lumberjack match. And if someone gets that reference, they're my people. He was terrible. There's no other way to put it. He is the biggest reason why they lost that game.
Yep. Yep.
He also, in fairness to him, he finished that game, and a lot of guys would not have been able to take that punishment. So I still respect him. I still think he's a starting quarterback. I just I don't need to hear Sam Darnold and Super Bowl contender. It's like there's however many years of professional football with however many teams, however many individual seasons those franchises have had, with however many individual starting quarterbacks. And when you have all those permeations of data, as the fucking snotty math nerds that I know might say, you're going to have weird seasons like this. And this was a weird outlier season. But people have to react. And if you're a Vikings fan, you want to ride the wave, that's fine. I get it. No problem with that at all.
No, I mean it was fun. Like I thought it was kind of cool that they were.
It was cool, and it was cool for no other reason than they had a reason to keep watching. Their season wasn't. Oh, I thought their season was cooked. I thought that's like now there's no reason to watch. They're not going to be very good, but they'll still be better than to get the number one pick. And all that stuff. But yeah, Matt Stafford. I'm gonna this is one of my favorite things to do. Audience, I want you to look up his numbers, his playoff numbers since he's left Detroit. We do not debate Matt Stafford as a Hall of Fame quarterback anymore. If you're a smart person, you acknowledge that he is a Hall of Famer. If you're a dumb person, you say otherwise. We have now reached the level where it's binary. I urge you to be smart. If you disagree with me, I'm gonna date your mom. I'm gonna date the shit out your mom. I'm gonna roll up on her real smooth, wearing that good cologne, tuck in my shirt. Yeah, usually I save that for the end of the show, but I'm just saying. Matt Stafford was amazing. Puka Nacua. I think by the end of next year, we're going to view him as a top 5 wide receiver. The defense was great. That game would have been worse if Higbee didn't get hurt because he was cooking them. I think he didn't even play the full first half and had almost 60 yards. So McVay had schemed up something nasty for him. And here's the good news for McCarthy. If he starts next year, he gets Jefferson, he gets Hawkinson, he gets the running back, he gets Addison. They have a good line. He's going into a hell of a situation. They have a great coach. I don't know why they haven't paid him.
So I got a question for each team for you. So obviously Jefferson will be there next year, but how much longer will Justin stay there if the team doesn't get further into playoffs?
Well, I think he has still the biggest wide receiver deal.
Mm-hmm.
So a while. I don't think.
I mean, do you think he can option out of that if he's like, "Fuck this, I don't really want to be here"?
I don't know. I don't know if he has a no trade clause or any way to get leverage.
Yeah.
I
just wonder if he starts getting so disgruntled because I mean he's not really a problem on the field or off the field, but he's a passionate player and I know he wants to win. So like I know this game had to hurt like deep down.
Oh yeah.
This is like a great record they had this year, and they bombed. It's like one of the biggest choke jobs you can have. But to go to your team, your second team, can they go to distance with this team?
As much as I would like to say it, no. They're missing a piece or two on offense. and this is an excuse. When they lose, it's going to be on them. They're missing a piece on offense. I am still a little concerned about the secondary. I think as much as I like the guy and I think he's a good player who puts up great stats. I think Williams, the running back, is a little bit of a product of the system that he's in and the play calling and the talent around him. Man, I just got to be honest. I view the Rams were a team. They're good enough to beat anyone in the NFL. They are one of those teams where you just don't want to see them. Stafford can go off on anyone. He can make any throw. I don't think that they are quite good enough. Now they can go on a heater and play spoiler. They might be able to kind of luck sack their way into a Super Bowl, maybe like the Bengals did a couple years back. It's they're not punching so far above their weight class that they can't knock anyone out. But I don't think that they, other than the fact that they're still a team that's alive and they theoretically could win, I don't really think so. But it'd be pretty sweet if they did.
All right, I want to save the Commanders and Bucks for last as far as the review part. Then we'll get into like who we're choosing going forward. But Eagles and Packers. This was we both picked the Eagles in this game.
It's a terrible
we knew the
game.
Packers were kind of coming in
Shitty,
really,
like the Steelers.
Yeah, they weren't really playing their best football, which is kind of surprising. Because Jordan Love's been actually pretty decent for them, showing his worth.
He's been up and down. I think the Bears broke them. I honestly think that when the Bears beat them, I think the Bears psychologically damaged them. I think the Packers, they are a team it feels like they have a million good wide receivers, but half of them are always hurt. But they always have enough weapons to be in it. And Jordan Love is up and down. He's been horrible the past month. He's more Favre than Rodgers, we'll say, in terms of play style.
Yeah, he did not have a good game.
No, he played
his stats, like as far as completions and attempts and yards are fine, but 3 picks, man, and no TDs. That's not going to get it done. And Josh Jacobs, 81 yards and a touchdown, so he did his part. It was just not a very good QB play there.
He sucked. The Packers fans are now debating if they still have the right quarterback. Because his overall numbers on the year are good, but if you go through those game logs, it's not good. He had I would say he honestly had a bad year. Now some of that you can pass off. He started off injured and whatnot, but I was kind of a Jordan Love guy, and I will just tell you, I feel less secure about my stance on Jordan Love now than I did at the start of the year. So the Eagles look bad. They did not do anything good on offense. Now the Packers have a very good defense. I will give them that. I don't know if they had a defense so good that the Eagles should have been so limited, especially given how bad the Packers offense was. But I will say this. I think the Bears legitimately broke the Packers. And if that was a game, like it obviously couldn't happen to the Super Bowl, but if that was like Buffalo versus the Packers, that might have been a 56-3 game. That might be a game where we're like, I've never seen a quarterback throw 5 touchdowns and rush for 4. They just looked, there's a certain point where they just looked whipped. And the defense looked like we can't do any, like we're trying to stop Brown and Smith and Barkley. And then that's when Dallas Goedert, went ham on them. And it's like, they're just trying to stop this cacophony of talent, this menagerie of just skill and speed and power. And eventually it was too much. God damn, man. I mean, Philly, even though Hurts didn't look great, that's a tough out. that's a
That's
team
a funny thing
too,
is that the Packers, if you're thinking about like no matter what team is playing the Eagles, like Hurts is so inconsistent himself that my first thing as a defensive coordinator is I just got to stop fucking Barkley. If I do that, it's going to put a lot of pressure on Hurts, and he's not always one to kind of step up. Sometimes he does, sometimes he doesn't. But if I'm taking my chances, shutting Barkley down and letting Jalen try to win
And
the
if
game.
and if AJ Brown burns you for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns, then so be it. Like
Yeah, that's you
you
just say
can't
that's fate.
stop.
It's
Yeah,
just fate.
you can't stop everybody all of the time. These
Yep.
teams are too good. The rules are the way they are. Now the offenses have been kind of put back in check a little bit, which is good, but it's still at the end of the day, when a team has Devontae Smith and Barkley and the tight end and AJ Brown, they're going to get some chunk plays on you. And if they don't, it's probably more about what they're doing than what you are to an extent.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a shit game. That was probably the least. I mean, like, because a lot of people enjoyed the Ravens game because a lot of people don't like the Steelers, and I get it. So it's like watching the Steelers get their
Well, a
ass.
lot of the games too were just kind of like after a while just got to be blowouts.
The
Like it was
seventh
just
seed is worthless. We don't need that shit. Only one time has the seventh seed won. It doesn't even count because they beat the Cowboys. It was the Packers. It was, and I say that the Steelers got the seventh seed. I remember when we was like, "Oh, the seventh seed Steelers, they're gonna go in there and give the Chiefs a fight." I was like, "No, we're gonna get fucked. We're gonna get fucked to death." There's just no way to put it. Patrick Mahomes is really gonna run up on us and give us the hands, and that's what happened. The seventh seed, it blows. Sometimes the seventh seed is better than others. Sometimes the seventh
I
seed
don't
is better
mind
than
it
a
just
team that
because
won a division.
I don't mind that like the first seeds get those buys. I think that's actually a good reward for them to have that. Now it's going to come down to this because they're playing their first game here. Like the Chiefs, like haven't played really in like 2 or 3 weeks as far as their star is concerned. So
They're feeling
if they
healthy
come
and
out
fresh.
shaky, you're gonna be like, is that a good idea anymore? you know. So it's gonna matter how they come out. If they look good, same with Detroit, they're gonna have to the first seed. So if they play like ass, they're gonna be like, I don't want that first seed anymore.
It's for the Chiefs. I think they're going to play kind of a crummy game against the Texans, and I still think they're going to win. I think they're
Oh
going to
yeah,
look. I think they're
yeah,
going to look a lot better in the second half than the first half.
yeah.
However, it is sometimes they are a team that does wonky shit, so they could be really good in the first half and then kind of fuck up in the second half and make it a game. But I have a
Yeah.
feeling. Nick Wright is one of the more interesting pundits out there, and I do like him to an extent. He's a big KC homer, but he's got to do his part to get ratings and whatnot. So he makes some arguments I don't think he actually believes. But as he refers to it as these games in the regular season and the first playoff game, he views as practice games for Kansas City, where they actually get their feet back underneath them and go do their thing. So I don't quite believe in it to that extent. I think that's kind of disrespectful. I also think it's overstating one's position to have to make a funny argument and kind of meme on people. But there's a kernel maybe of truth to it. I think the Texans are going to get fucked real bad. It's
I don't know how bad. I mean, the offense for Casey has been not that impressive. However, they do have a great defense. It's been very beneficial for Mahomes. But if Texans can keep the game close, I don't think they're going to win it. But I do think that if they can keep it close, like and get pressure on Mahomes, I think they'll be all right. But it's going to come down to whether or not Stroud turns the ball over. If he starts turning it over, they're fucked. There's
I,
no way getting around that.
may I offer a bold prediction?
Sure.
I think this is going to be a game where the Chiefs might score on offense the most points they have all season. Because this is what I'm seeing. I'm seeing they dialed back Kelsey, who still had a good statistical year, just a down year for him. I'm seeing Hopkins can still do some nice things on the field. Hollywood Brown's back. They can put Xavier Worthy where they want. So I'm seeing a lot of these pieces that were supposed to be together, finally together. I have no idea if Pacheco's right. I don't think it fucking matters.
Yeah.
Pacheco's a nice running back. I don't think he's a top 10 running back.
No.
So he's a nice piece. Now what he does well is really good for them, but I think they can get by with the running backs that they have. Shout out to Crocky J, the GOAT. I think that there's going to be a period where that Texas defense, which is quite good, does hold them back for a while, but I think the dam will break and there's going to be a Kansas City onslaught. And I think the narrative is Did the Chiefs get healthy at the right time? And do they secretly have the best offense in football again? And I think the Texans fans are going to go into the offseason going, our defense was amazing. How did that happen? And if the game goes away, I think that it will. We're going to I think, not us, but I think a lot of people are going to overreact and start questioning if Stroud is actually good. And it's going to be.
Yeah, I don't think that. I mean, he did have like a kind of a down year and it was off and on, but that's like the sophomore slump. The question I have is, how good is his line? Because his line does give up a lot of sacks. Or
Oh shit! It's
so,
a shit line, bro.
Yeah,
like,
so I'm like, that's the first thing I'm thinking of. Like, if your defense is good, you got a running back that's at least decent. You got receivers. I'm just like, I got to find a way to protect this guy. Like, it's the only way.
I think the really disheartening thing for how he's played is he's had a lot of plays where the line's held up where he's able to get out and he shit the bed. And what I think happened is I think Stroud, I think there's a little bit of sophomore slump. I think there's a little bit they have tape on him. It's not the division. Lord knows that division is pathetic.
Yeah.
Indy has enough talent to maybe steal a game here or there. But the Jags, I mean, we're now talking about, is Trevor Lawrence a bust? Tennessee is
they got to rebuild.
They sell the team, take Tennessee, put them to Oakland,
go to London. That's the best place they play is London.
That's where they want to put fucking Jacksonville. Like that's you got two teams in the South that might want to be in London. It's bad. I think Stroud is good. I think part of it is we build guys up a little bit to tear guys down. But man, I do believe in my heart of hearts that Stroud is still good. I think some people kind of went overboard last year. He's a top 5 quarterback already. They're a Super Bowl contender. It's like, no, he's not a top 5 quarterback. I mean, think about that. That was such a ridiculous claim. Because like top 5, it's like, okay, Burrow, who was sliding down, but he was still a top 5 guy. Lamar, Allen, and Mahomes. And so it's like Stroud is the 5th guy, and you look at the guys that you're taking him over off of 1 year, it was always kind of a reach. And then you're like, if you're doing it off of 1 year, why not Love, who beat theoretically a better team in the playoffs? Like I know the Cowboys were higher seeded, but they beat the Browns, and the Browns weren't really all that good. It was weird, but it was, and it wasn't even that I had an issue with the take. I had an issue with the definitively for a fact. Like you can't factually prove that Josh Allen is a top 5 quarterback or Lamar is a top 5 quarterback or Joe Burrow is. But if somebody said, I just don't think Josh Allen and Lamar are top 5 guys, you'd be like, oh, you're dumb. Or you're talking about or you're talking about all time, which would make sense. So it is what it is. I honestly feel bad for what I think is going to happen to the Texans. Also, I don't like the Texans. I will admit my biases. I think they're a dirty team. I think that the Texans are the cheap shotting, trash talking, dirty team that people want
They're
to
the bad boys of NFL.
Yeah, they want to. That's what people pretend the Steelers still are, and I get it. The Steelers have earned the reputation. Some people love it. Some people.
Steelers aren't really quite there, and it used to be the Raiders too, but none of them really have that anymore.
I
think you're right. I think the Texans have kind of taken that identity.
They're like the shit they did against Chicago was pathetic. Those refs should have been fired on the fucking spot, like throwing a punch on live TV, and they're like, "Let's watch it again," and nothing. It's just. Yeah. It is what it is. I don't find them to be very fucking likable. I mean, to me, they're the discount Cowboys. They've never been a real Super Bowl contender in their life. They're the shit they are to the Cowboys, what the Mets are to the Yankees, but at least Mets fans have a sense of humor. And fuck the Texans. They're still a poverty franchise. They probably always will be a poverty franchise.
Poe's going ham now. He's like,
fuck your team. Fuck your dirty ass team. Fuck Joe Mixon because he was a Bengal. I like Nico. No, fuck Nico Collins is a kind of an asshole. I love Tank Dell. I'm trying to think who else I don't like on that team. The rest of them. How about that? Fuck all of them.
The rest of them. Fuck them all.
Fuck them all. Fuck it. I'll give you a throwback one. fuck JJ Watt. I don't care that he's TJ's brother. It's just I don't like him. I don't fucking like him. That's
David Carr deserved all those sacks.
No, I feel bad for that. That man, that man had like a long MMA career worth of damage. Oh fuck!
All right, well, let's move to the funnest game of the weekend. Washington was visiting Tampa Bay. You and I both selected the upset here. I will tell you though,
Shouldn't have
and
been
I know you feel a lot the same way as me when I say this. Maybe not so much about the outcome, but like throughout this game, I found myself going back and forth about who I wanted to win because both these quarterbacks are fucking amazing. I'm so happy for Baker Mayfield and what he's been able to accomplish there because despite them losing, he proves he belongs there. And
he's a top 10 quarterback.
Yes.
He's a top 10 quarterback.
And Daniels, he proves to me again that he deserves rookie of the year.
He's a bad man. He's a bad man. He's clutch. He's athletic. Didn't he throw a beautiful ball? That's just poetry. His issue is going to be health.
The biggest turnaround I've seen in the last couple of years.
And the fact that Snyder's not there, or whatever was that his name? That awful owner, Dan? Was it Dan Snyder? Yeah, that fucking
he's like Jerry Jones light.
He's a horrible, horrible human being. So of course he's a billionaire. He's a horrible human being. I'm so glad that he doesn't get to enjoy that. I'm happy for the Commander fans. I got to be honest, man. I felt bad for Baker. I know people are talking a lot about the time of possession. I know that fumble.
Well, the fumble was definitely hard.
It was,
but that can happen to anybody. Like I can't really blast him for it because that shit happens too. It just happens.
He owned it. A lot of people are saying the rookie center snapped it at the wrong time, and it's on Baker because there's a bad snap that Daniels had, and he handled it cleanly. So it is on the quarterback to an extent. It's hard when the what's the running back or the wideout that was in motion, and you hike the ball and it bounces off of them.
It was a wideout.
I think it was a wideout or a tight end. It doesn't matter. It's just I don't even know why I asked that. It didn't fucking matter. Just like the fucking Texans. But anyway, it was absolutely rough. Fuck the Texans. It was absolutely rough. Baker's a stud. I appreciate the growth. I appreciate how he's been able to grow as a person while also stay true to himself. I appreciate that he's not Deshaun Watson.
And really, to be honest, again, I get, is Cleveland like the funnest team to make fun of just because of all the bad choices they've made?
Them or the Jets, man. It's them or the Jets. It's one or the other, my brother.
It's like when
pickle.
Baker got let go and left, I was like, you're in better hands, dude. You're out of the shithole. You could just go do whatever now.
It is, and it is so weird. If you had told me that there would be a time that the Browns won a playoff game, I'd have bought a lotto ticket. And if you had told me that they would have beat the Steelers, I might have needed help.
Wasn't that the year they came close to beating the Chiefs too?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, it was very close.
And then he had the shoulder injury, and they said, well, and here's the thing with Baker. He's a good athlete. And young Baker thought he was a great athlete. And he did dumb shit. Okay. And he was a little too arrogant. Just a smidge.
Yeah.
Just
he's
just
young.
a smidge.
So.
And I thought the criticisms for him, like with commercials, are dumb. Because like he's in too many commercials. I'm like, I watched Eli Manning try to sell me the same fucking watch for 5 years on television, and he only played 2 games in his whole fucking career. Eli's not a Hall of Famer, by the way. It's embarrassing he's going to get in. Not as embarrassing as the Texans, but it's embarrassing that I'm just going to shit on the Texans the rest of this podcast. I fucking hate them. I fucking hate them. Anyway, Texan slander or gospel aside. With Baker, you watched him go. So I don't have a huge arm. I have to put a little bit more oomph into it. And my shoulder, the whole left side of my body is cooked. So, and you're making me play in the rain. You're not protecting me from myself. You're making me play. I think he played a snow game too. He had a bad year, but it was pretty obvious why. And was he overrated? Yes, because it was Baker Mayfield magic and the playoff win. And now he's a Baker Mayfield MVP, Browns Super Bowl. And it was just like, I mean, it's not even me being a Browns hater. It was just like, No, let's look at the roster. It's not that good of a roster. If they get in there, it means they caught fire, got some good luck. Yeah, that happens from time to time. It is what it is. They get rid of him. They go get Deshaun Watson. That went over like a fart in church. And then
Such a colossal fuck, dude. These guys.
Baker gets sent to Carolina. He doesn't do well there because that's where quarterbacks go to get depression.
Yeah.
He
That's just
played.
like a one stop to
It's
going
just
to the insane asylum.
yeah, man. It's really like it's
I mean, even Darnold went there. So it's almost like, hey, if you guys want to reinvigorate your career, just go to Carolina for about a year, and then you can go to whatever team you want.
Go to Carolina. It's like get the rest of the bad quarterback out of you because they're going to beat it out of you. Well, the other team's going to beat it out of you because they don't block for nobody. And then a genius offensive head coach is going to feel bad for you, and but or it's one of the reasons why McVay's so loved. Actually, he saw Baker floundering. Stafford was out. They had some injuries. So they get Baker Mayfield, who's only there for like 3 weeks. And they do this crazy thing. And the Browns and the Jets and the poverty franchises should probably take a hold of this or note of this. You call plays that your quarterback is good at. And then you do it until the other team stops it. And then you call other plays that your quarterback is good at. And then you keep doing that until the other team stops it. And then you open up the field a little bit so your quarterback can do some things that they're okay at, they're not great at. And then you cycle between them, and then you might win a football game. I know it's fucking crazy. I know it's crazy.
It's crazy, man. It's just crazy.
It's just it boggles my mind. They're like, oh, Baker Mayfield, fucking McVay fixed him. It's like, yeah, he got him back in good graces and went to bat for him about how professional he was and stuff like that. But Baker Mayfield didn't eat a fucking, for an anime reference, a Senzu beam in Los Angeles and fucking become the guy he is now. And look, Tampa.
But you know what, though? That was really good of McVay and them because even if Baker wasn't going to be your long-term answer or even backup, like the fact that it helped him get more confidence in himself again, I think that was important.
And it was, really and you sold some tickets because it was interesting, and then you needed to start a quarterback too, and then you get to tinker with your offense a little bit and give guys.
Doesn't the Rams have Bennett though behind Stafford?
I don't know if Bennett was in the league when this happened.
Stetson?
They have.
Didn't they draft Stetson?
They might have. At one point, I think they had Wentz. Rams roster. I don't want to know who our backup quarterback is because that means something bad happened.
I think it's Bennett.
Let me take a look. I got it right here. Scrolling. And I'm scrolling.
Still scrolling.
Keep scrolling. Jimmy Garoppolo is our backup right now.
Oh God.
Stetson is the third. I think he got hurt.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But no, they picked up Garoppolo, just steady hand, manage a game, blah, yeah, all that boring shit. Ironically, one of the reasons I think that McVay is a brilliant coach. I don't think he's as brilliant as Shanahan Jr., but one of the reasons why Shanahan Jr. doesn't have a ring and McVay does is Aaron Donald. But another reason for that is because McVay values the talented quarterback and Shanahan Jr. values the when Jaded says, shout out to the homie Jaded, that he is a avatar, that Shanahan Jr. wants an avatar of himself on the field.
Yeah.
He's not entirely wrong.
Well, yeah, I mean, Shanahan, unfortunately, in fact, he is a good mind, but the problem with Junior is that he believes his own hype too much. And so when you have all that talent over there in San Fran and you still fail to get the job done, then that says something about you. It doesn't really say so much about everyone else. It says something about you.
I think that he had the unfortunate luck of running into the GOAT of GOATs, the most goatiness.
Second GOAT.
The true GOAT. He's my true GOAT. The true GOAT.
All right.
I also think that he, in fairness to Shanahan, he also ran into your GOAT Tom Brady in the Super Bowl too. So he ran into arguably the two great. Now, granted, if you ran the ball maybe a couple more times, the clock might have turned out the way you want. But
Anything.
it's
Well, even on like go back to was it last year or the year before when they played the Chiefs?
they played him twice in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, the second time though.
That was
When
that. Yeah, that was last
I
year.
mean, you had the ball, you had the chance to run out the clock and win the game, and you couldn't do it. Like
Yeah,
that's and I don't. I know Purdy's young, but I don't blame Purdy for that at all. I think the play calling sucked.
there was a partial play calling, and then the other thing is that Kansas City had the perfect play call, and Spag, I always fuck up his name, but their defensive coordinator, that man would blitz Jesus. He's just not scared. He's just not scared. So it is what it is.
All right,
Yeah.
well, let's get into our selections for this coming weekend.
Yeah.
So this game pains me because I want both to move on, but Ravens at Buffalo. I know I got it feeling that I want both to win. They just can't do it. Just someone's gonna lose. And I think the Ravens are ready. I think with Henry, they're gonna pound the fuck out of them with this. Unlike Denver, unable to run the ball, the Ravens will probably have some success doing this. They're hungry. Lamar is playing out of his mind. He would have to have a total meltdown, which would be unfortunate for him because he would just get a lot more criticism if he does. This would also put the end of the debate about who is MVP this year.
That makes me sad because it's a regular season award, but you're right. So
Yeah,
as a Lamar guy, if Josh Allen goes out there and has a stinker of a game, or he's good but Lamar's brilliant, it would not change how I feel at all about the MVP because I base it off of the regular season. When you do that award, I'll give you an example. Defensive Player of the Year for basketball is a really good example of this. There's this guy named Rudy Gobert. He's a Defensive Player of the Year finalist or wins it every year, and his style of play does not work in the playoffs. If we cover basketball, we could talk about that more. Suffice to say, last year, multiple times, the reigning DPOY was targeted in the playoffs, and he got violated. It was bad. I mean, it was really, 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 really bad. It was embarrassing. But so people will be like, "Well, in the regular season, he's amazing." Part of it is no, he's not. It's just that he's a try hard, and when you're playing on a random Thursday night at 7 o'clock on a not nationally televised game in a league that does load management, probably a little bit too much now. His style of regular season basketball is going to shine through. Or to use another example for you, it's like the bad Yankees teams that would make the playoffs because they just have guys who only swing for the fences. And it's like they're such a good regular season team. Why do they suck in the postseason? Although now that's math has shown that's what you're supposed to do.
yeah.
You don't have to forget everything you know about the game to be like that style of play doesn't really work. I'm going to devalue it a little bit, even though it's the regular season. It doesn't work in the postseason. There's nothing that Josh Allen or Lamar do in the regular season that doesn't work in the postseason. So that's not what I'm getting at. But what I am getting at is that we so willfully go outside the bounds of what these awards are supposed to be that I sometimes it makes me care more about it because I want to be outspoken about it. It also makes me not care and makes me feel like they don't really matter. Because there are examples of bad MVPs. Steve Nash has 2 MVPs. That shit is wronger than 3 times 3 equals 9,000 potatoes. That shit was terrible the first time. The second time it was even fucking worse. It was like fighting Mike Tyson. But it absolutely positively.
Well, yeah, you're right. In the grand scheme of things, it means nothing. But I think that when we have this debate as fans, as you said, the pundits have really been pushing Josh. I mean, Josh has had a great year, but
he's not undeserving.
When you broke it down last week as we were discussing this, it made a lot of sense that when I was looking at Lamar's stats, I'm like, dude, this guy's had his best year since since 2019. And that's huge. Like that really was an impressive stat because I wasn't really paying attention all year to the stat part of it. I was just kind of looking at the games and the play, and Josh was looking great, and Lamar was still looking good. But I was like, well, this kind of reminds me of Lamar. And then all of a sudden, I see the stats, and then I watched that game against the Steelers. And I'm like, this is a different Lamar I've seen in quite a while. This is the guy that you were hoping would be in year 3, but now we're like year 6 or 7, and he's starting to show what we all expected him to be in growth. So from just our standpoint, it means something, because if you're a Lamar fan or Allen fan, this is where they can just settle on the fucking field. You're going to say who's going to come out better, because they're both good defenses, both have good offenses. Let's see who comes out and plays. Who wants it more?
Yeah.
And the winner gets the reward of getting to play the GOAT over in KC. So
they get that enjoyable thing. I'm taking Buffalo.
Wow.
I'm sticking with my that was my prediction. If you pull up what I sent you.
Okay.
I'm taking Buffalo.
What's the score?
Jesus. I'm gonna say 35. No, I'm gonna say 38 to 31, somewhere in there. I wouldn't be surprised if you see a defensive touchdown or special teams touchdown or two. Those things often pops up in games like this. I think for their careers, Josh Allen is consistently better than Lamar. I think the best version of Lamar is better than the best version of Josh Allen. And I mean, stats aren't everything, but if you take Josh Allen's best year, and by the way, that best year would have won MVP 99% of the time. It's fucking brutal. Like Lamar got MVP last year, and last year was a weird year. Lamar was really good last year. No one's not saying that, but like
not compared to this year.
But if he had this year, if you swap those years, we'll be talking about why does Lamar look so bad this year? And that'd be kind of weird because he'd still be a good year. But I think that Josh Allen is the better talent. I think that Josh Allen throughout his career has been in totality the better player. I think that they are at home. Actually, I know that they're at home. I take that back. I know that they're at home. And even though they played earlier and Buffalo got whooped like a redheaded stepchild in a trailer park in the 1930s in a state with no DCFS after he spilled Papa's moonshine and so on and so forth. And I think that this is a decent matchup for the Bills now. I think that they found their footing. I think James Cook became the guy who I always thought that he was. I think Buffalo's defense will surprise people. I also think that there are a handful of times that Russ looked good against them. He made some plays with his legs. He did the limited scrambling that he could have. If I had Russ from 7 years ago, that probably would have been a Steelers win. So I like the matchup for the Bills now. I will say this. I don't think that Josh Allen has to win this game to stay intact reputationally. But if he goes out there and has a stinker like he did that year against the Bengals in the playoffs, it is going to severely impact how we look at him. And that will probably be too unfair. There's too much good tape on him. I will say I have two sharp criticisms of both guys that don't get talked about a lot. I'll start with Allen. He has some crazy playoff games and numbers. But a lot of that comes when he's the 2 seed and he's playing the 7th seed and they're overmatched and they're bad. Like he did that last week or what they did it to the Steelers. Although granted, I'm not going to rant about how they kept the game in Buffalo and I mean it was bullshit, but whatever. Is what it is. He's got some playoff stat bloat because of that. For Lamar, I always thought that a lot of like the playoff criticisms about him were actually overblown if you watched the games. Like it's like he was bad that game. Okay, yeah, he was bad that game. It was the worst game, that type of thing. My issue with Lamar in the playoffs is I know he's a smart guy and I know he's a smart quarterback. And I know a lot of people like to say otherwise. And I just think that they're not really familiar with his game, or they're just kind of assholes. I know he has known in the past, like last year against the Chiefs, we need to run the ball more. And that doesn't mean you're not great. Peyton Manning won his first Super Bowl because his run. If you go back and you watch that playoff run for the first Super Bowl with Peyton Manning, they ran the fuck out the ball. Matter of fact, they had a game against the Ravens, ironically, where they scored like 13 or 16 points. It was whatever. I don't think they got a single fucking touchdown. And they just ran the ball, kicked a 40-yard field goal, ran the ball, 40-yard field goal. That is sometimes that's what happens. I know he has the power to audible. And there have been times where, and it's not like when I say run the ball, I'm not saying not with him either. Like running the ball with Lamar Jackson has proven to be an effective play since he's come into the league, especially if you don't spam it or you're spamming it because it's working beautifully. And we don't talk about the lack of audibles from Lamar enough. We don't talk about how Josh Allen's, playoff stats, they are impressive. And I'm not saying that they don't matter. They are inflated, and we need to talk about that. It's a big game. This is arguably the biggest game that any of these guys have had, and both of these guys have only made one AFC championship game. So I will pick the Bills. I feel decent about the pick. It will be funny if the Ravens win and Josh Allen gets the MVP, because then that MVP is going to age like milk immediately. And it will be funny. I did not say fair. It will not be fair.
So I've got the Ravens winning. My methodology here is not that you didn't make some great points, but I think they're going to be far more physical than the Bills. And I do think last week, despite the Steelers losing, they were more physical and they were putting pressure on Lamar. So to me, already in the first week, Lamar's been battle tested, whereas Josh was having it cozy, basically sipping on tea while he was throwing passes all day. They had it easy, and again, Denver didn't want to make it easy, but that's just how it turned out. I think this will be a game. I think the Ravens will win it, though, 35-26. I think Henry is going to be forced down their throat like a bag of dicks that they don't want.
Oh, no, not the unwanted bag. Not the unwanted bag.
But again, it pains me because I love both quarterbacks. If I had to choose anybody from the AFC, anybody but the Chiefs, but somebody's going to lose here, and that's just the way it works. I think the Ravens are going to win this game, and if they do, I think they will move on. But thinking of moving on, let's move on to our next game, Texans at Chiefs. We kind of touched on this a little bit. I think, in my opinion, Chiefs are going to be a little bit rusty early on, but they're going to get their groove, and they're at home, which they're very good at home. Mahomes is going to do Mahomey things. He's one of the greatest quarterbacks I've seen in the modern era. It's just insane that he has to be a Chief. I wish I could just revert time and have someone else draft his ass, but it is what it is. I'm stuck with it.
Why couldn't he be a Saint or somewhere in the NFC that you play only once every 4 years?
Anywhere, dude. I could have been anything but the Chiefs. But the Texans, I think they're going to keep it close for a while just because they're hyped up. They beat the Chargers, and it's kind of like, with the Chiefs not playing their stars for a little bit, it's going to be like, okay, as long as the Chiefs don't I'd be tickled if the Texans can pull off an upset. I just don't see it. Even in a close game, if it is, I just don't see it. I'm not really believing that the Chiefs are destined for a three-peat. I know we're getting ahead of ourselves, but right now, just Texans are just not there. Like, they're going to keep it close, but they're just not there ready to beat them. I mean, I'd be tickled if it happened, but I doubt it. So I'm going to say Chiefs 27, Texans 13 by the end of it.
$63-3. No, it's not going to be that bad. It's not going to be that bad. 31-17. They might get a pity touchdown at the end. I think it's going to be a game where the Chiefs, they get up a couple scores, they play smart, kick some field goals here and there,
Yeah.
lock down the Texans. I think it's going to be, you know how some 14-point losses, you're like, that was a game. At the end, that team, they got that last touchdown. Or the flip side of it is like, oh, that was a beating, and that team that lost, they got that mercy touchdown or whatever, and it's like, yeah, we'll give you the touchdown to kill 30 seconds, and then onside kick, recover, and win. Because
Yeah.
I think the Chiefs are going to beat that ass. I think they're going to beat that ass real bad. I think, and I'm knocking on wood as I say this, I think the only real path that the Texans have to winning this game is a Patrick Mahomes injury or like 3 or 4 offensive linemen going out. I think Mahomes he's going to get sacked a couple times. He's going to get hit hard. They got studs. That you remember when the Texans traded up or traded back up to get Will Anderson. You remember how much I liked him. And he's a beast. He's a beast. He has defensive player of the year potential. And they got a lot of talent on the defense. But I can't go so far as to say that's the best defense that, Mahomes has ever seen. I can't even say that's the best pass rush that Mahomes has ever seen in the Super Bowl against the Eagles. You remember how good that Philly pass rush was, how many sacks they had that year. I don't believe – I think that there's a potential that this beating is so bad that and it's going to be a dumb conversation, but this is more of a prediction on media and how people respond. I think there's a potential for the beating to be so bad and Stroud to have enough bad moments, and he's kind of an emotional guy, and the camera can pan on you at the wrong time when you're an emotional guy, that we might be having those really dumb – is this insert quarterback who had a rough playoff loss, quarterback broken? That dumb fucking conversation. I don't feel super strong. I picked the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl. That's just how my bracket. That's how my bracket came out.
You just want to be on my hate list, is what
No,
it is.
I don't. I don't want to be on your hate list. I want to be loved. I want to be loved. I'm just not a lovable guy, and I'm working on that. Mostly by not working on that. But no, here's the actual game analysis, and I'll stop memeing. I don't see a way for the Texans to cover Xavier Worthy and Hollywood Brown deep. And Andy Reid doesn't have to call fly routes for both of them to get them open deep. I don't see their ability to stop Kelsey on third down consistently. Kelsey, he might have like one of those like 8 catches, 120 yards, maybe a touchdown game left in him. I don't think he's got too many of them. What I know he's got left in him is, at least in this playoff run, half dozen to dozen big third down catches, fourth down catches. And so if I can beat you deep and I can beat you intermediately, and the Chiefs are a weird team where they consistently get 4 or 5 yards a run, but they don't break long runs, it's really fucking bizarre. They're threatening they make you defend every blade of grass on that fucking field. And the Texans they have Derek Stingley Jr. I love him. When it became really cool to act like he wasn't the best or tied for the best corner in that draft was really weird to me, because everybody thought he was the guy coming into the draft, and the combine didn't hurt him or anything like that. So I was like, oh, I think we're just doing the flavor of the month thing. Derek Stingley Jr. is a bad man. He's the second or third best corner in football behind your boy, Surtain, who I believe is the best corner in football. I think this year, the Derek Stingley versus Sauce Gardner debate died a horrible, horrible death. It is Stingley, at least for now. So they got the pass rushers, they got an elite corner, but Stingley can only guard one guy. And if I'm just being honest, you sprinkle in a couple of those magical Mahomes plays in the running game, and Reed always has a couple plays dialed up, and there might be more aggressive and go for it. This could be a bad one for the Texans, and I'll stop memeing on them. But there is while I said 63-3, and I was kind of memeing, there is a potential for a 40 or 50 burger to drop down on that ass.
That's high.
There might be some. You start putting up them scores, and
I
you
mean,
get some
obviously, if the
Stroud,
Texans
you get
start
some
getting, loose with the
turnovers.
ball.
Yeah, yeah. The
All
ball
right.
is
Well,
getting
this
loose
next
everywhere.
game, it's very interesting. This next game because I got it. I have a feeling it's going to be an upset.
Hmm.
But there's two things that could happen here with the Rams and Eagles.
Hmm.
If the Rams are too cold, like if they can't handle the cold and they can't stop Barkley, Eagles might win it. However, I don't think they're going to be a problem with the cold. And I think they're going to shut down Barkley. I think they're going to do exactly what I talked about with what they should have done with the Packers, where they should have been concentrating on shutting down Barkley. They didn't do it, so they got burned by both. I think the Rams are going to do that, and Stafford's a seasoned vet. He's going to play well. I know the Eagles have a really good defense. They got a lot of weapons on offense, but this is a game that could bite the Eagles in the ass.
Yeah, I have the Rams winning the game. I love the way the Eagles front office operates. They have a flaw, they fix the flaw, or they try to. They manage the cap well. They draft well. They develop well. They draft a lot of guys from Georgia. You know, here's the thing with them: they are the more talented team on paper by a chunk. They just are. The roster is what the roster is. They went from having a terrible secondary last year to fixing it. They have Saquon. And a lot of people did not like the signing. I thought it was a risky signing because it's running back and injuries. He's had some injuries. I thought that Saquon Barkley was a top 5 back coming into this year. And given how McCaffrey's health unfortunately is gone, there is a valid argument for Barkley being the best running back in football. I think it's also pretty easy to do when he basically, didn't break the record because he didn't play the last quarter of that one game and the last game of the season. Now that's on him. He has to wear that. You saw Terrell Davis miss out on yards because Denver was beating that ass. That's if you have a 2,000-yard rusher, I don't think that 2,000-yard rusher has ever missed the playoffs. And if they did, I would probably beat up my quarterback or my head coach. Here's the thing that the Rams have in favor of them: Stafford is better than Hurts. You can argue Hurts is once again a top 10 quarterback. I don't think that's a terrible argument. I don't know if I disagree. I'd have to make the list. I'd have to sit down and really make the list, but it doesn't sound dumb. Stafford is a top 10 quarterback. Okay. McVay versus Sirianni. No one's trying to debate that. No one's trying to have that debate. The Rams have pass rushers. And if you don't believe me, ask Sam Darnold's ribs. So if the Rams get ahead, that's the nightmare. The Rams get ahead and the Eagles have to throw the ball. The Rams get ahead and Jalen Hurts has to chuck it, and not when he's comfortable. And they have Super Bowl experience. I love the corners that Philly drafted. I do. They're great. They're going to be great. I guarantee you Nakua has a game. And this is the type of game. And Cooper Kupp, unfortunately, is not what he used to be. He only had a catch. Yeah. I guarantee you, Cooper Kupp is going to have a game. And when that starts happening, I haven't seen if Higbee's available, but this is the type of game where the more talented team, the substantially more talented team, can lose because of matchups and composure. And I cannot sit here and say that I feel super strongly about the Rams winning. I can sit here and say, if I was a betting man, I would bet on the Rams. And I think it is going to be a strangely low-scoring game. I'm gonna say Rams 24, Eagles 20.
Dude, you were right there with me. I was going to say Rams 23, Eagles 20.
Oh, we have fucked the Rams. The Eagles are winning the Super Bowl. We have doomed Stafford. I'm so sorry. By the way, I have a quick question for you. If Stafford does get ring number 2 as a starting quarterback, that should end the Hall of Fame stuff, right? The debate.
Oh, I think he's already in it. I mean, he's got the stats. Even when he was in Detroit, he has the stats.
But I'm just saying, there's a lot. It's one of the cool things to do is to hate on my boy. Still, first we hated on him because we were silly, and now we're hating on him because it makes for an interesting talking point. And it looks like I'm disappearing on screen. What I'm actually doing is I'm fighting 5 different battles in different universes right now because I'm omnipotent. No, that might
This
be
is not a feather duster, by the way.
it's a quill. He's writing. He's my
I'm writing
boss.
down the notes.
Yeah, he's doing notation of my epic battles. No, the Eagles and Rams is going to be a good physical game.
All right, so that leads us to the last game. Lions will be hosting the Commanders, and this is a game where it could be a trap game for the Lions if they take the Commanders lightly. This could be a shocker, but I'm not really feeling it at this point. I don't think the Commanders are quite ready for this. The Lions, they've had a what do you want to say? A mission this year. They've had a mission, and they mean business. And the only thing that I think is going to stop them the hardest is one, if they underestimate the Commanders, and two, if that coach gets too smart for his own good, because he's known to outcoach himself in games where they lose. And I think that's the only thing that's going to hold them back from winning this game is if they do that stupid shit. But if they go out and do what they do throughout most of the year and get business done, I see the Lions winning this 24-10.
Oh boy. You know
You
how
think it's an upset?
No. Chase Young had a great rookie year. Once upon a time, Commanders were a fun team that year.
Mm-hmm.
He foolishly looked to the heavens and proclaimed that he wanted the GOAT. He wanted to play Tom Brady. And sometimes you get what you ask for. And it does not go well.
Right.
I love Jaden Daniels. You know I love Jaden Daniels. I don't even want to say the score. I'm going to type the score in chat. It's my real prediction. I'm going to let you say it because I don't want.
Okay.
I don't want. Yeah, no, that's the score. Lions.
Oh man, you are going high in those ranks. Look, I mean, I could be really low balling them, right? For sure on my score, but so Poet has put down 52-17. He thinks this is going to be a rout of legendary proportions.
I do think some of that is the game's going to be mostly over and Dan Campbell's still going for it and doing trick. I think Dan Campbell isn't a classless run up the score because I'm a dick. I think he's a let's keep scoring so they know who the fuck we are type of guy. I think he's a conqueror.
Well, they've done that. They've done that this year. I've seen them where the score is like, whoa, excuse me. Come on. He's touching buttons. I can't do
that what just happened there is what's going to happen to the Commanders.
So during the year, like I forget which game it was, but the Lions were literally by like mid-third
Cowboys
5 points
because they were pissed.
They were just working them the fuck over. And I'm like, we're only in the third quarter, dude. Like, we haven't even got to the fourth yet. So, yeah, if it goes like that, that could be a really bad day for Washington. I think Washington's defense is a little bit better than that. I don't think they're going to give them quite that easy task, but maybe the pressure after the game in the second half will get to them. They can't stop them anymore, but I don't know if it's going to get quite that high.
I also, and here's a truly hot take. But it's right. I'm just going to tell you this. It's right.
It's right.
They're better when they just give Jamar Gibbs the ball.
Yep.
The whole like, oh, we need Knuckles you need Knuckles to prolong Gibbs's career. Okay. There's nothing, even running for power, which is what Knuckles does. He's a little bit better of a power runner than Gibbs. Just a little bit. Everything else, Gibbs is significantly better. And if you look at what Gibbs has done in his career, because it's happened twice now where Knuckles has missed games. It's like this is high praise, but it's the Emmitt Smith thing where people are like, "Oh, it's just the line." It's like, "No, you fucking idiot. Watch the game." It's like the line is always going to help a running back. They can't run the ball fucking for you. And it's not trick plays, it's Gibbs being Christ. Jamar Gibbs is the only running backs I'm going to put ahead of him. Barkley, Behan. I do think Behan has comparable numbers in many ways and is on a significantly less competent team. Those are the only two backs. And if somebody wanted to argue Gibbs over Behan, I think it's wrong, but it would not offend me. So I think, and I know Knuckles is supposed to play, and I know that well, he takes the hits off of him. It's the playoffs. I don't care about the fucking hits. They don't care about the fucking hits. They're the Detroit Lions. I think Gibbs is a stud, and I think he is tailor-made to beat up on defenses like the Commanders because they're not a great defense. They don't have household names. They're also not like terrible and feckless either. They are mediocre. When I watch them play, and I can't tell you their stats off the top of my head, but when I watch them play, I'm like, they're fine. They'll probably get better each year. They have some talent there, but they can't stop what Detroit puts on the offense is disgusting. And they don't have they're not as potent 1-2 at wideout as the Bengals are with Chase Higgins. And they don't necessarily because they dilute their offense, and sometimes I think it's just because they like to be tough and run it with Knuckles. So I don't think they have coming out of the backfield quite what Philadelphia has. And Laporta took a step back this year, and part of that is teams adjusted, and there's a lot of guys who are getting the ball and whatnot. Nobody has, from top to bottom, the offensive talent that the Lions does. Not even the fucking Eagles. And you can say, well, this guy is better than that guy, and it's like that's fine. But then you get to the fourth guy and the fifth guy and even the sixth guy, and it's just Lions. The depth is insane. The flaw on their offense is they don't have a traditional beat you deep wide receiver, like a stand in the X and smoke you, like a Demaryius Thomas or a Randy Moss or somebody like that. But what they do have is a bunch of guys who are going to catch the ball for 30 yards and might run into the fucking end zone anyway. And they have Laporta who can beat you. Jameson Williams is dynamic, and he's a slot-ish guy, and he sort of is the deep threat. They have Amon-Ra St. Brown, who is just absolutely phenomenal. They have the running backs. They have the offensive line. If you don't get to Goff, the Lions have to beat themselves. And sometimes Campbell will do that. Sometimes Campbell will cut your fucking head off because he's Conan too. Goff is really good. He's had some bad moments. He doesn't. No quarterback does. I do hate the criticism of, well, if you get to him, you can shut him down. I'm like, okay, all right. Well, that worked against Dan Marino and Peyton Manning and Tom Brady and Brett Favre. Yes, I agree. If my pass rusher gets there and is almost guaranteed to sack him, we will probably, and we do that a lot, we'll probably have a good play. What they really mean is if you put pressure on him, you can disrupt him enough to get him off the game. And some guys just crumble and you don't even have to sack them. They just shit the bed and they see ghosts. That's what people are really saying, but it's the way that criticism is delivered that just irks me. All right, so my personal pet peeves aside, the Commanders are the type of good team that the Lions beat the shit out of. And you know, they got 26 points against the Rams. They lost to the Bucks, which was surprising. They only got 20 against the Cardinals, and they dropped 42 on Seattle. Seattle had a winning record. We thought Dallas might still be good. They put 47 on them. They got 31 against the Vikings defense. The Titans defense had some good players. They were good at some things. They put 52 on them, 26 on the Texans offense, 52. It's the Jags. Who cares? 34 against the Packers. They have a good defense. And they put 42 on the Bills. And so those are some pretty good. Those maybe aren't the great elite defenses, But we in this last round we saw at least one defense that was supposed to be elite get its ass beat. So maybe that's not the end all be all. All I know is that this is the type of game that the Lions are built to dominate. And I can throw out some more stats and factoids and things like that. That's just what my eyes tell me. I'm just a fat guy who watches football. What the fuck do I know?
That's all we are. Fat guys who watch football.
Every day I just try to get a little less fat. That's,
And it's working. That's good.
Yeah. It's all the sex.
All right. Well, that's our picks. I'm definitely looking forward to the weekend, and hopefully they're entertaining games, much better than we got the first weekend. But yeah, we'll be back next weekend to recap it all again and go into our final week, the conference championships games, and then of course we'll be talking the Super Bowl after that.
Yep.
Thank you, sir, for joining me yet again.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Real quick, fuck the Texans, fuck Brett Favre, fuck Deshaun Watson. The Texans I shouldn't have put the Texans in that list. Oh, wait, no, Deshaun Watson was a Texan. So yeah, no, that works. Yeah, fuck all three of them. I hate those purple fucking birds. I'm going for my Rams. If my Rams don't get it, I want Mahomes to get it because I enjoy watching greatness. One last little thing. Shout out to Caleb Williams. Thought he played well given the absurd, weird season that he had, a situation that he was in. I want to commend Josh Allen for an amazing season because I don't think I was being unfair, but it was kind of harsh there. These are almost like my end of the season, like show him love awards. I want to show love to Bo Nix for everything, especially playing through the broken back. That was dope. Shout out to your boy Surtain. He's the best corner in football. There's some other guys I really like. Shout out to Jared Goff because people still left that fucker for dead, and I didn't agree with the
I
didn't.
So he's proving me wrong.
Shout out to Jaden Daniels. And shout out to
Lamar.
Shout out to Lamar. Well, I've given Lamar. I've been accused of being a Lamar Glazer as of late. So, shout out to the Steelers, and shout out to the football fans who really love this, and shout out to our viewers. And last but certainly not least, shout out to pizza, which I'm going to go have.
Food sounds good right about now.
Yeah,
my kids are like telling me it's time to eat for themselves too.
I took a nap before this. I've had one meal. I had breakfast over 12 hours ago, so I need to actually fucking eat.
I need fuel.
I need fuel.
Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, give us your thoughts. What do you feel about the playoffs so far? What do you think they're going to be going forward? Who do you pick to win? And just let us know, guys. We'd like to hear from you.
And if you don't support this man, you know what? I'm not even going to date your mom. I'm just gonna ghost her and break her heart.
He's gonna tender her, then ghost her.
It's tough. I might date your dad. I'm probably gonna date your dad. Thanksgiving goes gonna be real weird. All right, take care, everyone.
Take care. Have a good one.
Just before you die.